Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members and community members, and especially community. I just want to do a little quick follow-up and just touch on a few things that were mentioned during this. First of all, I want to respond directly to some things that Commissioner Perry said. He talked about the suppression of evidence. This is all of a sudden a concern that was mentioned by the administration for the first time, 2-3 weeks ago, has never even been communicated directly to the coalition of folks. And honestly, I think it's a little bit of a red herring, because when you're dealing with almost the great proportion of crimes that people are charged with are in state court. There's very little that gets prosecuted in municipal court, and so the idea that municipal ordinance, all of a sudden, they're worried that this will suppress evidence in state court seems a little odd. The next thing is, Commissioner Perry now says that they have a concern with prohibiting pretext stops. So, aside from the fact that's been in the bill all along, he mentioned that the Supreme Court allows pretext stops. That's true. The Supreme Court also allowed slavery, still does. The Supreme Court also allowed discrimination. I mean, just because the Supreme Court allows something doesn't mean it's the best thing for our community. So that's why the city lost a very big criminal case that got a little publicity on Friday. And again, if police had to think twice before doing a pretext stop, maybe an individual and his family wouldn't have had to go through that suffering and that beating that lasted so long. Gang database, again, very cumbersome. No, I'll borrow Judge Fortunato's language, make it simple. What the clause on the gang database does is says you need to have criteria and the public needs to know what criteria you're using. That's not cumbersome. It says you can't use a person's race, where they live, and who they hang out with, and we would prefer what they look like as criteria. That's not cumbersome. And then it says people can have a right to know if you've put them on the gang database, and if they think you did that in error, they have the right to challenge it. If you did it right, and it follows the rules laid out here, okay, great, you're all set. But at least people have an opportunity to clear that up, which they don't have right now. There's also some issues that I think were mischaracterized on interpreting. This in no way prevents a bilingual officer from assisting in the investigation. They can investigate, they can interrogate all they want. If I'm going to interrogate you in Spanish, I can still do that. What it says is that they cannot function as an interpreter. You all heard Sophia just now, she did an excellent job. That's not easy. Just because you're bilingual does not mean you're a good interpreter. Folks who've grown up in multilingual families may know that. Just because somebody tries to get you to do it doesn't mean you're able to do it sufficiently, especially not when somebody's freedom is on the line. So that's really not... This city spends a lot of money, and sometimes in things that some of us believe are not needed. But, you know, again, every time the police mess up, it's cost the city. It often costs the city money. This hopefully will make everybody be on better behavior, and ultimately the city will have to pay out less money. And finally, I just want to also touch on not just what Commissioner Perry said, but what he didn't say is that also the clause about, he didn't speak to the clause about trans people and people with non-conforming gender identities having some say-so in how their identity is defined when someone's going to touch the private parts of their body. He didn't mention why, all of a sudden, again, weeks before this public hearing, that now that clause needs to come out, and that now it's just going to be handled by a policy. Well, if we could trust them to do that right, that might be one thing. And we did make that concession in some areas, but on this, they told us in a meeting back in April of 2006, the police promised us they would give us some alternative language that they were comfortable with. They never did. So how are we going to trust them to come up with a policy in time to protect the rights of people who need their rights protected? Commissioner Perry has now gone through a lot of talk about wanting to tweak this. This has been close to In July of 2015, we met with the commissioner and the chief and went through some of the language, did our follow-up, and we're waiting on follow-up from them. You can't come in here when now it is time and say, oh wait, we have a problem with this. No, folks have been working hard on it. Many of the folks on the city council have been working hard, allies have been working hard. You know, I understand some of you haven't made up your minds yet, but you're giving it thought, and that's important. But you can't come in at the last minute and then say, oh, by the way, we have some problems with it. It's time, it's too late. And then just to close, I did wear my Miguel t-shirt again. Those of you who worked with him know that he is with us, and I think it's fair to ask for his spirit to come and give guidance to everyone, because this is what we need to be doing right now. And I trust all of you.